got two shot okay?
Yeah, that shot's great. I'm happy with that. Let me call it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to UGASports Live Podcast. My name is Rodney DeBulce. I'm joined by Dane Young, Jake Roos, Dave McMahon, and, of course, Jim Donnan, the Hall of Famer, former Georgia head football coach. The only reason you guys are tuning in on Tuesday at noon, and we really appreciate you doing so. It means a lot to us. If you were listening to this on, through Apple or Spotify or Podbean or whatever, if you would, give us a review. We'd appreciate that. It really helps us. And if you were watching on YouTube, let us know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see folks all over the world, all over the state, all over the nation tuning in. It just makes us feel like somebody's actually out there. So, kind of like that old joke, I can hear you breathing. You know, when your joke bombs, I know you're out there. So.
I don't know what it means to joke bomb.
Yeah. Big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford, Europi, where we are right now, Academia Brewing Company, where I was this past weekend for their brunch. I'll talk more about that later in the show. Of course, Ryan Lucy and Aaron Overhead Doors. I heard from Ryan first thing this morning. He's a good guy. And, of course, DR Construction Maintenance. Dave and I are in the Europi location, the original Europi location where the whole thing started with Drew and Natalie French when they came back off a honeymoon, and he had an idea that, they had an idea to open up their own customized pizza shop. You walk in, you pick out your crust, whether you want a keto-friendly crust or wheat crust or gluten-free crust or just white crust. Then you pick out your sauce. You pick out all the toppings you want. They don't charge you per topping like some of these jerks, these other pizza places. You get as many toppings as you want. They turn around, pop it in that super hot oven. The crust comes out perfectly. They bring it to your table. By the time you've got your drink and you sat down and checked your phone, you have a fresh pizza. So we are at the original location, letting everybody know that they are open. They are serving. They have been even for the whole year, the whole COVID thing. They're immaculately clean in here. They've been immaculately clean at all their locations. And we just want to thank Drew and the folks for letting us come in and take over their spot. So we got a lot to talk about this week. It's we're getting close to. Each week we're 1 week closer to spring practice. So I'm always excited about it. I feel this sense of optimism. It's just usually we don't feel this optimism until spring practice, or not spring, but until fall camp, a couple weeks in when you start hearing good things come out of practice. But I think everyone's so excited that they feel that Georgia will have the defense that it's supposed to have. They got a good bunch of freshmen on campus, all 16 of them. They got a good offensive coordinator, good quarterback. There's still a ton of concern about the secondary. We mentioned that last week. But I just feel like the fan base is getting more and more excited, and we're ahead of schedule, guys, for that optimism, that enthusiasm for the season coming. And I guess I'll throw it to Coach Don right off the bat. Is it, Coach, is this, I don't want to say is it misplaced optimism, but is it fair to be this excited as the fan base seems to be?
Yeah, I think a couple reasons. First of all, just the fact that maybe we can be a little bit more normal as far as preparation, as far as having spring practice, as far as
spring practice,
everything. That in itself is a big deal. And then, there are a lot of good returning players and more solid
came back,
more solid recruiting base as far as even though we didn't rank top 2 or 3. I mean, we were right up there. I just think we're off to a really good start this year with all these guys. And, offensive staff being together a year like that is going to help the continuity. Defensive staff has one addition. And, I think overall schedule is certainly set up not as tough as last year.
Yeah.
So it'll be tough, but, I mean, it's not anything near what it was last year. Plus the opponents we're playing have a lot of question marks throughout the Eastern Division and, the new coach at Auburn and the other transition game. We got moving over game, on the other side of the conference against Arkansas. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback too. So I think throughout the league, you're seeing a lot of new quarterbacks. I mean, Alabama's looking at Bryce Young, and school's out on him. I still think his size is going to be a limitation to him. He's certainly talented. Trying to decide who they're going to play at LSU. I could go through the whole deal, but we'll have a good beat on our team this spring, and we'll see how things work out for our defensive secondary. Is going to be a real challenge to get some of the quality play out of our corners that we've gotten, and then offensive line just getting the right mesh. So don't want to rehash too much, but hopefully we'll have some good questions. But I feel good about our team. I think we have the top 5 team nationally as far as personnel, and how it meshes will be a real factor in how good we do.
I agree. And Dana, I'll go to you with this because I have a hard time articulating the excitement that the fans are feeling. And again, this is just based on a gut feeling because we've been running the dog vent I've been around since I think 2007 on the dog vent. And normally there's a lot more hand wringing this time of year, a lot more worries. And I just get this sense of excitement for this season. And Coach touches on a couple other things that I didn't mention. You have all those seniors coming back, which has that kind of 2017 feel to it. You have guys getting an extra year. We broke the news that Julian Rochester was coming back. That's a big deal. And I don't care what people want to say about how he's been here 100 years. That's fantastic. That's experience. That's a guy who knows how to play the defensive line. He's a great character guy. You love Julian Rochester. Get Demetrius Robertson coming back. That's a big deal. You get 5-star athletes. You catch passes up there. Then, like as Coach mentioned, the schedule. You look at that schedule, you're like, wow, Georgia's got a tough game to start the season with Clemson, but it's not. You're not facing Trevor. So it's just each of those little things in years past. It's been like, oh, we got a tough schedule. We don't have the quarterback thing's not settled. We got a new defensive coordinator. We got a new offensive coordinator. We got a new this, new that. And there's nothing for the worry warts and the Munzonites on the dog vent who are always looking for the what could go wrong next. There's not a whole lot. It's really, as Coach said, you got to worry about that secondary. But I just think that the enthusiasm that I've seen, in February, middle of February, is a lot higher than it's been in a couple years. And that's even when you had, a returning Jake Fromm, or you had 3 5-star quarterbacks on the roster. It's just different.
Well, I think what you're experiencing is everyone in the nation is trying to figure out who's the LSU from 2 seasons ago, who's the Alabama from last season, where those offensive pieces are there. And what we've seen in college football is that if your offense is efficient, protects the ball, and can attack at all points on the field, then there's really not a defense that can stop it. Or at least in the case when you're in those big games, you'll be in those big games, if you know what I'm saying. You're not going to be a limited team like Notre Dame in the playoff. There's a lot of elements to that. And I think Georgia is in a position, as much as anyone in the nation, to probably feel what that profile looks like, the LSU, the Alabama, to be in prime position for that national championship game. The only thing that I would temper expectations a little bit, and I'm not saying because of talent at all, and I'm not saying that he can't reach there, so I hope people don't read into that. But happiness in life is how you manage your expectations, right? And yeah. JT Daniels is a really good football player who has not played against the top-notch competition in the SEC regularly. Georgia's schedule was definitely front-loaded last season. It was before JT Daniels was healthy enough to help the Bulldogs in that passing game. And now I think he's got all the opportunities in the world to be one of those guys, to put up stats that help Georgia score a ton of points and get those receivers the football. I just think people should probably calm down a little bit until we see it on the field. And I think that'll probably help fans deal with any of the stuff that comes along the way, because he wasn't as accurate with the deep ball as he's going to need to be. He's definitely not a mobile quarterback, and we hope that he's healthy enough that maybe just a tinge more of mobility will help him extend the pocket.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it's not his fault that he wasn't able to play in those games. I mean, his knee was an issue, but hopefully he can play 2 more years. I think that'll help him. People are saying, hey, we're worried about him going out. He's a first rounder. I wouldn't worry about that too much. I think he's certainly a good player and has got some pro potential, but he could certainly benefit from playing 2 more years. I hope he does. It'll continue to help him develop and grow, particularly under Todd Monken, who has really good. You can get quarterbacks to come to places and everything, not necessarily Georgia anywhere, but who's your quarterback whisperer? Who's the guru?
Coach, you've actually been there in the room and developed those guys, developed the quarterbacks. You've been one yourself. I hate to press you on this when you don't have a video clip to show or a whiteboard in front of, but when you talk about development, where does he need to develop? I mean, we know he couldn't take off, and we've heard some good stuff about his knee being a lot healthier than it has been, since he injured it. So we know he's hopefully in the spring he'll be more mobile. But when people start talking, and we've seen the projections first round, and I've seen other people go, hell no.
Who projected him first round?
Some of the people that need clicks when they start talking about draw.
I don't think you've seen anybody, but I mean that's nothing against JT. But I think
there's ridiculous drafts way out there, but people get excited about it. And granted, he was a 5-star guy, so we projected first round if we were say he's a 5-star guy, and doesn't mean we're right. But to me, I think Dane makes a good point. And of course, we know Dane hates JT Daniels. It's no question there. He rips on him all the time. But it does bring up a good point. He did play against 4 not great teams. Would he have been as good as Florida?
Cincinnati was a good team. Cincinnati was good. But
we needed a field goal kicker to win the game. My point is, when we say development, can you give us some specifics to what?
Let me just point this out. What round was Jake Fromm taken in?
The 5th, I believe.
5th round, and he had some pretty damn good games against some really good opponents, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to really gauge on how much this kid's going to develop, and I hope that he does. And that's no bag on him. I just think he's got a lot to prove to be taken in the first round.
He's taking it all. I'm not even arguing that point. I just wonder what does he need to develop? Because again,
I think his strengths here. He certainly got football acumen. He's a gym rat. He works hard. He's got a very good competitive nature. And, he's won the room over as far as the players on our team, got a lot of confidence in him. So that starts out. And he, really is a very talented, has a big arm, and he knows where to put the ball. I mean, he anticipates throws extremely well, and that's going to help him. He's got to work on his footwork. I think that's one thing that all quarterbacks can get better at. I mean, it just depends on how you're looking at it, but you just can't count on your arm all the time. And I don't necessarily think that he does, but if you just put yourself in his mindset when he knows that he's not quite as mobile as he was before his knee injury, then sometimes you have a tendency to rush your throws a little bit and not use all your technique and do the right fundamentals because you're worried about if they do get on me, I don't know if I can get away. So I think it's just very tough to force yourself to go, when you take the snap and go 3 long and 2 short or 3 short or whatever it might be on your drops, and then read the coverage and do everything else. But I would say from my standpoint, fundamentally working on his footwork, pocket presence, awareness of releasing the ball on time. And if he continues to develop that, that's going to really make a big jump in his draft status and his ability to go to the next level. But playing against the competition that he's going to go against throughout the season is going to help him too, as far as the way people rate him and see how he does and who he goes against and what he does successfully. I think supporting cast, he's going to have a heck of a receiving group, great backs, the O-line, young but talented. So, and the defense is going to be the kind that can take the ball away from you, give you good field position. And special teams, the same thing, where you not always going 80, 90 yards. So a lot of good things in his favor to have a big year and hopefully 2 years.
Coach said the thing that I think is JT's biggest attribute, though, is that he came in and he won the room, and his teammates have confidence in him. You have to remember that JT Daniels was Georgia's 4th starting quarterback in 4 months last season. So to provide stability in that spot quickly as a new guy on campus, that's not a little feat. He won over those guys, and that was big.
Well, I was going to say too, Coach, I think that you're going to get a lot of those answers kind of off the bat. I mean, you'll figure out – I mean, the best pass rush he's going to face all year is going to be in the first game. I mean, Brian Bresee and Miles Murphy are going to be breathing down everybody's neck, not just JT Daniels. I mean, that's as good of a duo as there is out there. So I think you'll be able to see, how has that footwork improved? How is he rushing throws? Is he still doing that? So the first game – it's going to tell the tape of the rest of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, that Clemson defense didn't give up 6 touchdown passes to Ohio State, so we'll see how it goes. Oh, they are. You're definitely right, Jake. I was just being smarty pants, but I do think those two guys worry me. Freshmen, what a tremendous athletes they are. But Clemson's going to have to, do some things on the back end to help themselves. I mean, they got exposed, and I'm sure Todd Monken's going to look at that and work hard to do some of the same things that he implemented all year. But I think there's a lot of carryover too. I know when I took over jobs, and from the first year to the second year, it's just like night and day as far as the team reaction, as far as how the players are going to react in stressful situations, as far as who's going to do better than others. Sometimes you count on guys and you don't really realize that they're not capable of it, or you count on you look at a guy and you think he's not, and then he does it. And I've said this millions of times. The first year I overrated so many players at Georgia that I was counting on, and I'm sure they're counting on me, and I underrated some. And after a year you find out who the guys are. And that's one thing Monken's done with his staff and the players. He'll be so much better as far as games, everything about it. It's just something you got to work on. And he didn't have the benefit of spring practice, or he didn't have much benefit as far as knowing what these guys, and then guys he thought it was going to be his quarterback opted out early. And it's just a unique situation. I just think our offense is going to be minimum 50% better than it was this year. I just think minimum. Don't you guys?
It should be.
I do. That's kind of why I started the whole show off with the whole optimism. Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
No, I mean, it should be. I mean, I think just from a continuity standpoint, it should be. That should benefit everybody as much as anything. I mean, offensive line, I think, is your big question on when you're talking about the offense. But like you mentioned, Coach, those guys are young but talented. And I think that it's a group that can mesh. I think it probably helps to have Matt Luke, kind of taking the reins another year, like you said, just the continuity of all of it. I think that that's really big for kind of everybody involved. And I think that that's probably why you'll see Georgia take a step forward. 50%. That's a big expectation. I'm not saying you're wrong at all, but I think that they'll definitely be taking a step forward.
Here's the underrated thing, though, in searching for the next LSU, Bama offense, whatever. Joe Burrow had played a decent amount of college football. He was an older guy. At that point, he was barely taking classes because he had kind of done what he needed to do. He was, full-time quarterback at LSU, so to say. Mac Jones had been in that system with multiple different guys, but he knew those players at LSU for years. That maturity that comes with that. Yeah, can freshmen and sophomores come in and be Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson? Yeah, that's possible. But way more often in college football, it's the mature quarterback that can lead everyone, show them where they need to be, and they also have talent on top of that. It tends to be that people focus on the talent piece of it, but man, a lot of life changes when you go from 18 to 20 or 19 to 21 or 22 in some cases.
I think you nailed it with the fact that you mentioned 4 different quarterbacks in a short amount of time. So they have 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 years, so you go from Chaney to Coley to Monken. That doesn't help a whole lot. You got a new offensive line coach last year. He got the bowl game in, but they're still feeling their way. But again, that's why I mentioned that has that kind of 2017 feeling, because I'm sure that Kendall Milton is a fantastic back. We're excited about what he can do, but at the same time, when you need somebody to pick up a blitz and Zamir White's back there, you feel a little bit better about, that the experience, not missing that block. I'm not saying that Kendall does. Kendall's a heck of a blocker, but we saw, Kenny Mack miss 1 or 2. And again, that's sometimes just game experience, and get a Jamari Sawyer, get a Justin Schaefer back. Justin Schaefer, think about this. When Justin Schaefer gets out there, he's not the highest rated guy. I'm not saying he's a Solomon Kinley, but a lot of those guys that he's going to face next year, he faced this year. And all of a sudden he's like, I know you like that swim move. I know you like to show me your ribs when you do this twist or do this stunt. And to your point about the guys that are 21, 22 versus 18 or 19, I think that's a hell of a difference. Again, these are all the reasons I think the fans are excited because you keep finding these things that the offensive coordinator bolts the quarterback, that bolts the offensive line. You got start downtown to wide receivers, Jordan Davis is back. You just keep the enthusiasm here is normally in February. We're still a little let down from the year before because you didn't win the title. But right now, I just think it's gung ho optimism.
So, who are the two best quarterbacks in the SEC last year? Was Kyle Trask and Mac Jones. Both have had experience. Both had sat on the bench for a while. Both learned from the system. Both were and learned and eventually got their chance and got there. That's the experience you need. You can't, not like Dane said, you can't start as a freshman right away in the SEC. There's a big difference of your high school. Yeah, and he sat down for a half against North Carolina, or not North Carolina, but the year after. Excuse me.
But you're right. You're right.
Yeah, you can't. It's very difficult.
It's the exception to the rule.
Correct, and like Dane said, there is exceptions to the rule. Like you said with Trevor Lawrence. But Trevor Lawrence also did not start as right away as a freshman. Right. And then you also maybe it's just like in college. In NFL, the Super Bowl, Tom Brady didn't start right away in the NFL. Neither did Patrick Mahomes didn't start right away. Aaron Rodgers didn't start right away. Matthew Stafford didn't.
And not in college.
Oh no, in college. No, college. It took him a couple of games. And that was another season that Georgia had 3 starting quarterbacks that season because Joe Cox started the game and then Joe Tarasinski started a couple games earlier than that. So it takes time. There's a big difference of high school talent and college talent. And I think your biggest improvement not only is from your freshman year to your sophomore year or first year to second year is learning the system and learning the differences of high school and college and learning how to be a man and how to learn development.
Be a man. Speaking of being a man, if you want to be a big man, be a smart man, swing out to our friends out at Athens Ford. They have fantastic deals on all the 2020 vehicles out there. It's tons of pre-owned vehicles. And remember, it's the only place you can go and get a lifetime powertrain warranty on all new vehicles and pre-owned vehicles under 80,000 miles. They are the #1 Ford certified pre-owned dealer in the state. And if you go out there and get one of those certified pre-owned vehicles, it's going to feel like you're getting a brand new vehicle. It's going to smell brand new. It's going to look brand new. It's going to have every inspection. Everything that can be inspected will be inspected and either replaced, repaired, fixed up. It'll be mint condition, and you'll get it for a song compared to buying a brand new vehicle. So that's why they are the #1 Ford certified pre-owned vehicle, because it's a good deal and they take care of you. So if you want to be a smart man, smart woman, smart kid, smart teenager, smart student, there's a $500 discount for students. There's a $500 discount for current and former military. There's a $250 coupon if you just go to their websites. Just say, hey, yeah, I'm here. Here's my name. And they'll give you $250 off any vehicle. So when you get a chance, check out our friends at Athens Ford. They do a great job of taking care of people, and they will make you look smart. It'll make you look like you're a senior. The game will slow down for you, as they say, if you are driving around town in a new vehicle from Athens Ford. So we appreciate them.
Yeah, they gave a little special thing for your pie Ferrari right here.
So this is bigger than the normal your pie, right?
Yeah, that's 10 inches is great at your pie, but that's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, the new big pieces are your pie. So if you get a chance, they're not doing it everywhere. I know they have tons of locations.
That looks outstanding.
70 locations. They're only doing it like 8 of them, but they're test marketing it. So if you like the idea of a giant pizza that you can control yourself, see if the local your pie next to you is doing the big pizza. So hit them up.
I like how they put the pizza next to the skinny guy now.
Yeah, fatty, you can't have it.
Darn it.
Hey, I texted Coach this question yesterday. Now that we have another former SEC head coach in a job with Gus Malzahn at UCF. So, Coach, I'll just ask you here, what do you think about the fit with Gus Malzahn at Central Florida?
I think it's good. He's got a winning resume. He knows how to coach offensive football, and, it's the second lease on life for him. And it's certainly going to be a very challenging situation as far as keeping up the same kind of winning percentage that they've had under Frost and Heupel. But to get a guy that's had that kind of – you don't have many guys that beat Nick Saban 3 times. So it's good for Gus. I think he's got to get him a good young staff to go there and on a limited budget compared to what they're paying guys at Auburn. But, I mean, to me, I would give it an A rating to get a guy like Gus being the coach at UCF, or is it UFC, as he called it?
Yeah, he did get that wrong. I covered him for 3 or 4 years when I was in TV down in Columbus. He was as happy in that opening news conference in Orlando as I have ever seen him, maybe outside of 2013 with that crazy year in his first season at Auburn.
I think it's a great fit for UCF too. I think that's such a talent-rich area, and you can make do with guys who are, your low-rated 3-stars down there in the Orlando area. He's going to be able to go find really fast kids who want to stick close to home, or maybe don't have the grades to go somewhere else. And I think that it's going to be. I think he's going to be able to keep them right where they are, if not take them further. And I think that's a better situation than. I think it was a better hire than Tennessee made by bringing in Heupel.
Why didn't Tennessee go after him really hard?
Maybe he knew about what
every year. This is a guy that's beat him 3 times. It seems to me like, and maybe he didn't want to go there, but I never really got the feeling that they were going after him really hard.
It's hard for a team in the league to go after a guy that, whatever reason didn't win big enough and lost 4 games a year for the last 6 years. So. But certainly of the people they were looking at, I would think he would been a good hire for them too. But
I can't believe
here's the thing. Did you guys see Tennessee's graphics on maybe our man Stats can look it up, where they were introducing their new coaches, had this big bright orange thing out there and then had a black and white picture for every coach. I mean, come on. I mean, this is the University of Tennessee, a big-time program. I mean, it's not 1949. Maybe I'm wrong, but I see all these funky graphics and all these beautiful – am I wrong there? Tell me.
No. I mean, it looked like they used the Xerox to put it together. I mean, they could have used Photoshop maybe. You got to think there's some kid on campus.
Look at it, Roddy. Look at it, Dane. I mean –
I'm looking at it. I'm not impressed.
I can't imagine though why Roddy is questioning the decision making of the higher ups at Tennessee. That just doesn't. Why would they go? Why wouldn't they go after Gus Malzahn? How dare you doubt them?
I'll tell you this about Gus, though. I don't understand coaches, because I guarantee you, if anyone ever pays me $20 million to go away, I'm going to do a pretty good job of going away and not getting into a job where I'm working 16 hours a day and have 5 days off a year. That's just not how I'm wired. But coach, I guess you coaches are just different in that sense.
Maybe that's the problem, is only working 16 hours a day. I think coaches work about 18 or 19 or so.
Yeah, the thing about it for Gus, though, he knows who the boss is. He worked with this guy for a year, and there's something about being wanted like that. I mean, he was the guy, felt like it'd be a good mesh, and there's no question about a non-Power 5 job. This is among the top 2 or 3 in the country, and they got the resources and the manpower. You always look at a job, can you get players there? I mean, they can go out the front door and look at 500 kids right off the bat. So you can get players. They got a system in place. It's not like you're starting from scratch. So at his age, if you're going to be a coach, then that's a good chance to not have to go and rehab some program. That's something after you've been on the super highway, sometime it's hard to go back on the detour and try to figure out how you're going to get back on that super highway, particularly at his age. So it's a good move for Gus and a good move for UCF or UFC.
Do you think he can handle the pressure cooker of UCF?
Yeah, that was what I was about to say. I was about to ask it too. As that young man asked, do you think he can manage those expectations at UCF?
That was really a good question of being truly aware. I was watching my daughter Tammy showed it to me, but they had a press conference. This Barantini guy had to default, or he called a walkover. He defaulted in the Australian Open. And so they had the press conference, and some guy at the press conference, the first question, he said, "How do you feel like you played today?" The guy didn't even play.
It's a bad look for all of us talking heads when that ends up happening.
He didn't even play.
That's the main reason I've asked bad questions before. Remember Mark Rick jumped down my throat because I asked a stupid question after a game. I don't even remember what it was, but it was well deserved. It was dumb on my part. But everyone asks a stupid one now. But that's one of the reasons I love doing this show is because we'll hear someone say, well, this quarterback needs development. What the hell does that mean? It's easy to say, and it's easy cliche, and all these talking heads and film analysts and guys will throw something out there and act like they know what the hell they're doing, because we could say, oh, he'll benefit from another year. Well, what will he benefit? What exactly will benefit? What will be better? And then I can hit coach up, and he's like, well, this kid needs to work on his footwork, or this kid needs to, know what to do in this situation. He needs to improve this, and that's why, Coach, I appreciate it.
And Roddy, you're exactly right. That is the difference of this show and other shows, is that other people just say things, blah, blah, blah. Coach gives us reasons. Coach gives us he gives us the why that no one else can. And by the way,
I would say one thing that I would count on our team being successful this year. Oh, nice picture there. Would be this.
Ice cream and brownies.
George Pickens needs to play. I mean, you take that guy away in the 2 games, Kentucky and Florida. I mean, without him, we're not near the same team, regardless of who the quarterback is. So, I think
same with Jordan Davis. But to me, Coach.
Well, I mean, you could say it about everybody.
We didn't give too much credit because we just wrote a story about the defensive line, but it feels like the defense is completely different when he's in there.
Well, it helps to have Jordan too. I mean, LeCount. I mean, all those guys didn't play, but that's spilt milk. But I just feel like Brent Rollins did a good job on our site talking about 32 targets, 23 catches for Pickens, and he caught, 4 big balls for, touchdowns and some great catches. But just makes the whole defense worry about a lot of things when he's in there. And very comforting to go to the line of scrimmage and look out there and see that guy's out there. I don't care who's covering him. I mean, it's just always like to know your best guy's in there to let it go. And he's, if you're going to throw the ball to Hines Ward, he's probably going to catch it. I mean, you're going to throw the ball to some of the great receivers we've had here. They're going to catch the ball more times than they're not. So I think that had a lot to do with our lack of success offensively, as much as poor quarterback play sometimes was not having Pickens in the game.
Oh, yeah, look at the passes that were dropped. We give a lot of grief to the quarterbacks, but there were a lot of passes that hit guys in the hands, that they could have caught. I think probably a good feature for us to go through and do the amazing catches and then the amazing misses. It gets you excited, but then it also just drive you crazy.
Compare Stetson Bennett's first half against Alabama to Ohio State's first half against Alabama.
Oh, yeah, that'd actually be a great one right there. I do want to mention something that is, I think, a great idea. I actually did this past Sunday. Yeah, Sunday at about 12:30. Our friends over at Academia Brewing Company are now doing a brunch on the weekend. They call it beer and biscuits. Sure enough, you go out there and they have these giant biscuits that you can get all sorts of different ways. They have great pimento cheese grits that you need to try. My family loved them. I'm not a grits guy, but my wife and son absolutely pounded them. They thought they were fantastic. I had the biscuit with the triplata on it. So you had the triple meat biscuit. It was fantastic. It's that actually comes on a sandwich, and best sandwich I ever had. Fried egg on top, with the pulled pork. It's just phenomenal. So great sandwiches, great biscuits, tons of great beers. You can get your what do you call it, the Bloody Marys that you want. You can get all your favorite breakfast drinks. So it's not just beer, but they call it beer and biscuits. And check out our friends at Academia Brewing Company. It's a biscuits and beer brunch. They do it from 10 to 1 Saturday and Sunday. We went out after church on Sunday, and it was just fabulous. So,
did you have to take a nap after that?
I only ate half a sandwich.
So half a nap.
No, it was huge. It's a huge sandwich, like $6. I'm like, holy crap.
We call those the cat head. That's a cat head biscuit.
My son had the vegetarian scrambler, and then he ate all the grits. And then I could see him looking at my sandwich, looking at the second half of it, being polite, but I could see him watching it, kind of like your dog sitting at the table. And I'm like, hey, buddy, you want to have a sandwich? Well, we'll try it. So he tries it, and before I know it, he's licking his finger. So, yeah. So I had to have, but if I'd eaten the whole thing, yeah, I talked to Matt Casey, the owner out there. He had one that morning. He's like, yeah, I'm leaving here going straight to bed. It was just it is such a fantastic sandwich. And again, the biscuits are great. So, and Matt is, he's got a chef employed out there. So of course they're not going to, just throw some canned biscuits in front of you with gross sausages and bad eggs. They do great work. So when you get a chance,
you said you're not a grits guy. How long have you lived in Georgia to not be a grits guy?
I was born in Decatur. Just
That's what I'm saying. I feel like it's
49 years old today. See, this is more my speed. 49 today.
I knew it was your birthday.
See the gelato here and the brownies. Yeah, that's more my stuff. I don't need grits. I got ice cream. Gelato.
Fair enough.
Gelato.
Hey, we did have a question for Coach. Came in last night. Coach, what is your take on getting Julian Rochester and I lost Julian Rochester and Demetrius Robertson back? How much do you think they will play? Well, we really want to know what impact will they have. The second question was how much do you think they'll play?
The obvious impact is just the fact that they've been around the program and know what the standards are to set for the younger players. The fact that it means so much for them to be on a team lets the other guys know that.
Coach, I think you're covering your mic a little bit with your hand.
Here's a guy that wants to play, that's been out, and really wants to go through the grind, because it is a grind. All the practice, everything involved. So set the standards there, and you know what you're going to get with both these guys consistency wise. Robertson's been a great special teams player, and he's caught the ball pretty good when he's had a chance, but you're going to get a lot of good special teams out of him, covering kicks, doing he can return kicks. And then Rochester just really comes in and does a very good, solid job of maintaining the line of scrimmage and holding his ground, and gives you a guy just to give you 2 or 3 plays when you need to spot somebody. And I think you can't have too many guys like that on your team, just dependable, the guys that are going to do what they're supposed to and not give you any trouble. I know we had a little incident there with that I read about with Rob, with a boot on a tire, from that situation. But hopefully they'll get that rectified. But really, I don't know what he was thinking there, but
UGA parking services winning hearts and minds just over and over again, always.
Yeah, but you got to take the good with the bad. It's his fault. I mean,
sure.
It's not UGA parking. So I know one thing, when I was coaching, we didn't have the internet like it is now, but 2 things that were the hardest for us were phone bills and parking tickets. We just couldn't control it as much as we wanted to. Guys come in, Coach, I need some money for a phone bill. Coach, what are you going to do about these parking tickets? And my basic answer was, there's the door, man.
Hey guys, here's a bit of news happening during the show. Florida Gators athletic director Scott Strickland tweets that the Gators will not have a spring football game because of the COVID pandemic.
Really?
Yeah.
I see where they're starting Thursday, though, 18th. Yes. That's a very early start.
Yeah, he says that they'll have their 15 practices, but it will not end in the spring game as a normal season would have. So he's got a statement.
I see a lot of teams doing that, really, from the standpoint of, get one more practice in where nobody's watching you. You got a new quarterback, show what you're going to be doing. I know they got to play Alabama early. I think it's probably a good move. They don't want to show what they're doing, so that's their priority.
Yeah, I like the idea of Georgia actually having a G-Day, mainly because we want to see it. But I think that would be a good time, Jake, to have a bunch of recruits in. You can't officially host them, but they could always buy a ticket or just come to the stadium. We had a ton of recruits this past year who came to Athens, wandered around, or Brock Vandegrift hosted them, and got a lot of his guys to sign. Well, you're like, hey, we can't host you. It's not, there's nothing officially we can do with you. We can't meet with you. But if you want to come to the stadium and watch the team, especially some of these guys in Georgia, come on up.
Yeah, and fingers crossed that the NCAA does the right thing and gets this open soon, because there is talk that they're going to bump this back to May 31st again with the visit restrictions. I mean, this 2022 class, what a handicap they're playing at. I'm not saying the 2021 guys had to deal with something nobody's ever had to do. Some of these guys have received every offer they've ever had without being able to check out a single school, and
They've already bumped it back to May 31st, hasn't it?
I know that was discussed. I don't know. Did they lock it in?
That was the.
I know that was recommended or
what they recommended.
It was a recommendation. Right? I don't know if they put a step yet.
Yeah.
But again, we had the story with Kirby Smart saying he met some of his 2021 guys for the first time when they stepped on campus.
Yeah.
And he said, we've known them, but the first time I actually meet them face to face was when they showed up. And it wasn't a lot of them, but there were a couple that he hadn't met before. And you've got a bunch of those 2022 guys. Luckily, and again, when Jake would go to games and do those photo galleries and take pictures of a kid last year and say, this is a 2022 kid. And you're thinking this kid's 2 years away, or prior to that, this kid's 3 years away. And when Jake puts up his photo galleries, you need to look on those names, because there's a reason George is inviting a true freshman to a game, or a sophomore to a game. And that has paid off huge for this 2022 class. Some of these 2023 guys would like to commit. So I'm saying very, very well done to be ahead of the curve. It's paid monster dividends now, but I just think if you have that G-Day game, you can tell those guys, hey, y'all can come up. And we can't do anything, but you can at least you do something. And if Florida wants to get rid of their spring game and not have that opportunity,
come on down to Athens.
more power to them. Because how many times have we seen a kid try to decide between a spring game or a recruiting event? Well, so-and-so's having a cookout that weekend, but these guys are having a dog night, and so-and-so's having a private camp, or invite-only camp. Hey, less competition, the better for Kirby.
I will say it would not surprise me though in the least to see Georgia go this route. I don't have any inside information that they're going to do so, but I think just for some of the same reasons. I mean, Scott Strickland says Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is being used as a large-scale COVID testing and vaccination site. I like Coach said, look, Kirby Smart's not exactly the most forthcoming when it comes to allowing people to watch what they're doing. So another secret practice might just be the answer.
Hey, look at our first game.
Yeah.
Look at all the question marks in secondary. Well, I'll let Clemson see that, So there's a lot to be said about that. I tell you what's going to be really, really aware to me is if for some reason we aren't able to have camps this summer. So you're going to go 2 years in a row. You're going to see a lot of recruiting mistakes after this year.
No question.
Most of the kids had already been to camp, juniors and things like that, sophomores. But if you go 2 years in a row without having camp, you're going to have a lot of guys get signed that aren't as good as they're supposed to be.
No question.
Whatever decision comes in Georgia's G-Day game, it's going to have cohesion with the university's graduation celebration deal, because what you can't have is athletics saying we're going to have G-Day, everyone come to the stadium and be as safe as you can, but we're going to have a virtual graduation the next month. That just doesn't work in terms of optics.
Sure.
Good point.
Our fan base would be okay with it, though.
Who cares about graduating? This is football.
Did you go to your graduation? I'm
How many people go to the graduation? How many people go to the football game?
That did bug me. I saw that.
You just put yourself in a parent's. Put yourself in a parent.
I think
Parents
they should
want to
have,
go see their kids graduate.
especially after what they paid. Absolutely.
Hey,
Let's
I
try not
loved
to
my
burn
graduation. It was a big thing for me. So, yeah, I enjoyed graduating inside of Sanford Stadium. That's a really cool thing that I'll remember because it was important to me and my dad and
didn't
everything
do
that
it.
we had.
We had the Grady Journalism School had their ceremony. My dad came to that, and that was the first of his sons to graduate college. So that was a big deal. He came to it. But again, I'm all about it. It was probably the most proud he's ever been. Until I had my son, then he was oh, you did good. but now I'm with you there, and I think I teased him, but I think you're 100% right. So look, you're going to have G-Day. You need to have graduation inside the ceremony. I mean, that's the only time some of those people will ever step foot on that field. It's been 5 years in college. You want a chance to
5
stand up,
years. Genius.
stand up there and say, "Hey, you want to move it over?" So I hope they do have the graduation again. I hope they have some concerts again. Anything that can use that big venue that's right in the heart of campus, I'm all for it.
Just like a Top Golf thing.
A Top Golf thing, I think that's a great idea too. Yeah, can you imagine having Top Golf and G-Day and no graduation there? Come on. That is unacceptable. Speaking of top people, our friends over at Aaron Overhead Doors, they're not top golfers, they are top installation specialists and repair specialists for your garage doors. They are tops when it comes to customer service. They do a great job there. They do an unparalleled job, to be honest. I've seen some of the reviews. If they're all 5-star ratings, one guy actually said, "Hey, I'd like to give them 6-star ratings." One of the people who asked a question about Demetrius Robertson and Julian Rochester reached out to me because he had a good service experience with Aaron Overhead Doors. He lives in the Gwinnett area. He didn't say I could use his name, but he said I could use his question. So I just wanted to say shout out for folks who actually watch the show, listen to the show, and then use our sponsors. It means a great deal to us. And thank you for asking the question. And again, thank you for Aaron Overhead Doors for hitting it up. Ryan Lucia was one of the first people to text me this morning, text me happy birthday. He doesn't need to do that. I mean, he's just a
good guy.
Damn good guy. So he's a damn good dog. A big Georgia fan. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody who roots for the dogs more than Ryan Lucia does. So big shout out to him, and big shout out to Aaron Overhead Doors for sponsoring us. If you were in the North Georgia area, if you were in the, like I said, the Gwinnett, Beaufort, Barrow, Habersham, Dawson, North Fulton Hall, Stevens, Jackson, Forsyth, Walton, Clark, Oconee, and you need anything done with your garage door, reach out to Aaron Overhead Doors. They'll take care of it. And of course, if you're in South Georgia, if you're in the Liberty area, Long County, Bryan County area, reach out to DR Construction and Maintenance. Those guys will do a fantastic job for you. Shout out to our man Ronnie Brown, who's holding it down in South Georgia, the Liberty County area. That is another damn good dog, a guy who roots for the dogs nonstop. He's on our message boards, he's on our podcast, he is a sponsor of this show. And if you need anything in the South Georgia area, in this any sort of construction, maintenance, remodeling, reach out to DR Construction Maintenance in Liberty County. They will take great care of it.
Holding it down, Ronnie Brown.
Yeah. We did get a question from UGA Alum 95. It says, so is the West Virginia quarterback in the portal starting at UGA this fall? Also, can the O-line keep JT upright this year? Questions for Coach Day. Coach,
I'd say the answer to that's no and yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of speculation I know about Drayson Miller transferring from West Virginia, former guy from Sprayberry High School. I think either there last or one, but a Georgia kid, Georgia native, obviously worked under Jamal Adai up there, had a fantastic season, but has reopened the process. We got a lot of questions about that when it came out that he had hit the portal. Don't know that that's going to be the direction Georgia goes. I could see why people would think that. I mean, the fit's there, right, with being an in-state kid, having worked with the DB's coach, but haven't heard anything to make me feel like that's going to be the solution just yet.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this from a perspective of the room, of the defensive backs there. This guy would have to be a Tyson Campbell, an immediate impact guy that could come in here and start. Otherwise, you're establishing credibility with your players. You're trying to work out with them, and you're trying to help them understand that you're being fair and all that. I mean, just the general feeling would be that this guy's getting a better shot than me because you coached him at West Virginia. I mean, unless he's really good. If he is, then so be it. He deserves it. That would be my initial reaction to it, from the standpoint of the guy that came from Alabama. Kirby knew that he was better than what we had, so we brought him in. So I would think if this coach, our new secondary coach, thinks after watching spring practice, which he can't come till the summer anyhow, after spring practice, he sees all these guys. He sees Kimber and all these guys compete along with speed. I feel like Ringo's going to be the other side unless something changes. Then maybe look at the guy because he can say, hey, this guy's better than them. But I just think the natural assumption is, hey, he played for the guy at West Virginia. Let's take him.
Yeah.
But West Virginia compared to playing corner at Georgia, different ball game here.
We all made that assumption. It's like, oh, was position coach goes to Georgia. He's from Georgia. They need cornerbacks. Was a starting cornerback. He's leaving. So yeah, you would go 1, 2, 3. But I think the second question that UJ Alum 95 had was the one about can the offensive line keep JT Daniels upright? And I know that I'm always looking for something to worry about. It's just the nature of the Munson-ite in me. But I like where Georgia's at, but you're out a couple tackles again. We're changing the tackles around a little bit. Warren Brinson will be back. Warren McClendon will be back.
Go eat some gelato. Don't worry about it. That thing.
I have to worry about it. Because I'm like,
you can't. Our O-line does
experience, and they're going up against Breesy and Miles Murphy.
O-line doesn't worry me.
Okay.
All right, I got a couple rapid fires here for you, Coach. We're gonna. I'm just gonna throw these to you because we're a little short on time. So
what's my time limit here?
Let's say you got a minute apiece on each.
That's too long.
Okay, well then go 30 seconds.
All right.
Adjust as needed. All right, primetime dog over on the board. He says, Coach, could you see Amir Speed or William Poole possibly starting at corner versus Clemson from the opening snap, allowing younger players to rotate in? Or do you think that you'll see either one or both of Ringo, Kimber, and Green during that game?
Well, we know a lot about Speed and also Poole, what they can do, and we know what they can't do. We haven't seen the other three do a lot yet, so we'll have to see how that goes in spring. But I would say that the more than likely, based on what we need to have, Speed and Poole are going to have to make dramatic improvement to be a starter, and that's nothing against them. But I think these other guys have more ability going in, so I would say one of those three would probably start over those other two, in my opinion.
All right. Boy Racer 45 wants to know, are there any second or third year players on the team who maybe haven't made an impact yet that coach thinks has a chance this year? Examples such as Clay Webb, Mikael Sherman, Treble Davis, Tresman Marshall, Devin Willock, Jalen Kimber.
Well, I would say the last two, Willock and Kimber, for sure. Webbs needs to come on. I mean, it's time for him to do it. The other guys, I haven't seen enough about Davis because of his shoulder. Who were the other two?
Sherman and Tresman Marshall.
Sherman, I really like. I think he's got a good motor. He did some things on special team. Marshall, another injury guy that wasn't his fault, came in with an injury, but he certainly has got a chance to come on, kind of like Tyndall did, kind of like Quay Walker did. Maybe not ready quite as quick, but all these guys have something to show. They just didn't get to play early, but I would say Kimber, to me, has got what it takes as far as watching him flop his hips and do things. And Nyland Green, I think he's going to be probably, if you took Mims, then the next couple guys that could come in there quickly would be Bowers and Green on our freshman group.
See, you're a genius. See, somebody already asked that question. That was the next thing I was going to, and you already knocked it out. I swear to God, I'm not kidding you.
Hey, Jake, let me throw in one more name into that group. And he seems like he doesn't belong because he's played a lot of football. But I think Nolan Smith really does have the avenue to kind of take that next step in terms of being an elite pass rusher, in part because Azeez Ojulari is going to be a first-round pick. And so that role on the team is going to need to be filled by someone that can go attack the quarterback and be the closer.
Good point. I think the fact that Nolan had such high expectancy level and he had such a hard time making the squad because of who was ahead of him, not because of his ability, but you're talking about Largy, you're talking about Anderson, Johnson, who transferred, those guys. So now that he's going to be the man, so to speak, sometimes guys, when they get a chance to be the guy and not looking over their shoulder about making a mistake, just get in the game and do something. Wow. I think Smith will have a big year. And Anderson, I really think the weight of the world's off him now. He's not waiting in line. He's not just going to be a third down guy. He really is going to have a big year. I think he could be lights out for us.
All right. This one I thought interesting. Another one of those second-year guys people waiting to hear a little bit about, but this is in a pretty loaded group and didn't see much out of him last year. He said, what should we expect out of Justin Robinson going into this year?
I watched him when he was here for the practice when the last time really that we were practicing when anybody was over there for the bowl game 2 years ago, and he looked pretty fluid out there. Just came off a state championship, and he just got some good competition ahead of him. I think it's going to be how much he develops on his. He's not a real burner, but he's a possession type guy, and he's got good skills. And there's a place for him on any team. I think he's got a good attitude. He's just got tough competition right now, but he's definitely a guy we can look at.
Well, and I'll add to this about the depth chart thing, because people think George Pickens or Jermaine Burton, Dominic Blaylock, who's coming back. The name that I have heard from people that I talked to that was really beginning to make an impression upon coaches and people in the program, and it happened right around his injury, was Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint.
No question. I mean, the guy's a legit big-time player. He's legit.
I warned everybody coming in when he was in high school. I knew it. All right. This one for everybody. Just because I think it's an interesting question and one that hasn't been asked, actually. Bulldog Ben says, who is QB2 versus Clemson?
Stetson Bennett. You need a guy that's been in the fro. You need a guy that knows what to do and can get you through and have a chance to win the game. He's had some big wins at quarterback, unless Beck just has phenomenal fall camp and spring practice. But there's a lot to be said about Bennett as far as knowing what he can do. We know a lot of things he can't do, but he did a lot of good things last year. I think it's going to be big question mark what he does after spring practice. I mean, will he go somewhere and try to play 1 year where he can be the starter, or will he stay here? I hope he stays here.
I agree with Coach. I think it's Bennett week 1, game 1. But if you ask me the same question week 5, week 6, it might be a different answer.
Exactly. You got to win that game.
Yeah, this is not going out on a limb. If Brock Vandagriff plays against Clemson, Georgia loses.
Yeah.
Or wins by a lot.
All quarterbacks. You're so evil.
I mean, he's straight out of high school. I mean, that's Clemson. It's not that he's not good or probably couldn't even handle the job. It's that task.
Yeah, it's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, you got to win that game to be in the playoffs. I mean, you could lose it and still be in it, but boy, you got to win it. And that your second team quarterback's the guy that goes in there and manages the game and can make some winning plays. I mean, he made a lot of winning plays against Alabama, against Auburn. I mean, the guy is
Auburn beat Tennessee.
It changes the whole narrative of the season if you win that game, that first game this season. And it sets the tone. It sets all the expectations. And I think realistically, that's the kind of win that at the end of the season, if you were to stumble maybe in an SEC championship, assuming you make it there, people can look back on that and say, well, they did overcome those guys at that point. That's a big resume boost.
You got to look at it exactly like we did going into the Arkansas game. He was the backup. Things didn't go well. He came in and answered the bell. That's what you got to have there. You got to have somebody that you know is going to avoid losing as much as win. But I feel like Brock and Beck, from what I understand, Beck's really worked hard in the offseason, improved his quickness, and we hadn't had a chance to see him throw or anything because they hadn't done that yet, but except on their own. But I feel like Beck's got some talent, and certainly Brock is untapped. But we got a good situation there going into the first game compared to last year going into the first game. Good Lord.
Would it make a difference, Coach, if we're talking about the number 2 quarterback based on an injury in the first quarter, or you're up so much at the end of the game? And again, I don't expect this to happen against Clemson, but just in the world of possibility, you're up 3 scores, you get the ball back with 4 minutes left. Does that determine who the number 2 quarterback is?
No, you've already determined that by fall camp. I mean, you're not going to change that. You're not going to let a guy go into the game knowing he's number 2, and then you get up ahead and say, okay, let's put this guy in because he's going to be here for 4 years. I mean, you lose a little credibility.
Okay, I'm curious. I want to know how it works.
Question. It's a good question, and there's no question we got to get Brock and Beck going. I mean, they got to get them reps and get them in the game. And if they're the second guy, then don't do it. But you got to be very careful about how you handle the psyche of talking somebody to come back and be your backup quarterback, and then all of a sudden you get the first game and you're winning and you don't put him in there. Come on.
And Roddy, even in your hypothetical, if Georgia's up 3 scores on Clemson with 4 minutes to go, JT Daniels is still going to be in there because it's Clemson, and you just can't have stuff go wrong at that point.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I was just thinking when they asked who's the number 2 quarterback, I'm like, it seems to me that would almost be my first thought is that would be a conditional thing. Is it the number 2 quarterback because your number 1's down, or is it number 2 because, hey, we're winning, we're going to put it in the second guy now, and we got to get these guys experience. We got to keep all the different quarterbacks happy, blah, blah. So that's why that's why I ask. And, Coach says, no, that's not how you do it. And it makes sense.
And every year, Kirby, that's happened. Like there's been an injury in the first game in 2016, 2017, like 18, I guess it was, but 19, yeah. So be careful.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing. We got that situation where it's okay, but you look around the conference and you got so many teams up in the air. Who is going to be their quarterback? Their number 1 quarterback. They're not talking about their second quarterback. Who's going to be the number 1 guy? I would say the situation that's up in the air as far as competition as much as any situation is LSU with Brennan coming back after starting all year. And then you had 2 guys that started games in Finley and Max Johnson. How can you not start Max after what he did the last couple games? But I hear Coach O talking about, yeah, we're going to get old Brennan, but he's going to be back now. Let's see what happens. But how can you – I mean, that should be awesome. What you got any more questions here? I don't want to talk about LSU. That's my bad.
Last one. I love your Coach O impression. We're going to ask you LSU questions nonstop.
I want you to do a whole show in Coach O one day.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. In 2007, I think it was 2000. What year did he get the Ole Miss job? Look that up, stats.
If we I'll look at that for you.
Good question. 5 to 7.
He was from 2005 to 2007. Yeah, 2004. They're playing a national championship game in USC against Oklahoma, and I was doing it on the ESPN radio, and they were doing a walkthrough before the game, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, Coach Donna, what are you doing, man?" I said, "I'm doing okay. I'm gonna be the coach in Mississippi. You got anything you want to talk to me about?" And I said, "Hey, just be yourself." "Hey, I'm going to do that, Coach. I'm going to be myself."
I don't think Ed Orgeron knows how to be anybody but Ed Orgeron. That's for sure. All right, last one here. Last question.
He scared me, Roddy. He walked up behind me. "Hey, Coach Donna."
You knew who it was right away.
I'd have jumped out of my skin.
All right. Jay Mube on the board says, should there be any concerns about JT's mobility? He says, with an offseason arrest, the hope is he will be back and more agile in the pocket. In my opinion, that's the wild card of the season. If he can run, Georgia will be better. Concerns about JT's mobility, I guess, extending over from last year.
He's not going to be able to be a running quarterback. Come on. I mean, nothing wrong with the question, but you can't do something you're not. He can be more effective as far as not being quite as probably the situation he was in with his, with that kind of situation with his knee. But we're whistling Dixie thinking that. I mean, he should be able to be a little more effective, but that's going to always be a negative with him as movement in the pocket. I mean, we knew that coming out of high school, but that's a hunky-dory type thought here. We're not going to get that changed. I don't see that happening.
I think the question is more, can he avoid sacks?
Yeah.
Not so much can he take off running, but can he there are a couple of times it just looked like he was stuck, like a statue.
Well, like Coach said in the very beginning, one of the things he has to improve on is his footwork. There's a difference of improving your footwork and being a running quarterback.
He might be able to avoid them a little bit better, but that's not going to be something that you can get.
Hopefully you won't be
hard to develop that, but I do think one thing that's going to help him from a positive standpoint, playing against better teams, you have a tendency to let the ball go quicker because the coverages are better and the rushes are better. But if you're playing against lesser teams, sometimes you hold the ball a little longer, knowing that things are going to open up because their line's not that good at rushing or their coverages aren't. And that's something that I think these pro people are talking about. Justin Fields, hey, he holds the ball too long. Well, he can hold the ball a long time in the Big Ten. I mean, there's nobody up there to cover the guys, and he waited. But I've seen him here at Georgia release a ball in practice very quickly. So sometimes people have a tendency to overreact and talk about things, and I'm not talking about Fields here. Just I think going against better teams will help us on the pass pro just because he's going to be more in rhythm because he knows he can't hold it as long.
You nailed it, Coach. The best way for JT Daniels to avoid the sack is to throw the football. And, he doesn't hold the football too long very often. That's one of the things he does very well, I think.
Throw it to number one and say goodnight, Gracie.
There you go.
Coaching's not that hard.
Number one. It's a one-digit number right there.
Well, throw it to Big O.
Yep. And 1-0, the perfect 10.
Yeah.
Throw it to 1, throw it to 10, throw it to 7, throw it to 0. I mean,
4.
Yep.
Hand it to those guys. He's got a good supporting cast, that's for sure.
Damn straight. Again, that's why, to bring it full circle, I just think that's why so many people are this optimistic. I've seen the fan base just kind of, I don't say giddy, but way ahead on the optimism charts as to where we normally see them throughout the years. And I think just because the way everyone's watching this, and that was my question to Coach right off the bat. Is it well-founded? And Coach says yes. We pointed out a few things need to be worked on, and we'll see that in spring practice.
There's a real difference. Seriously, there's a real difference between optimists and pessimists and realistic approach to things. And, we're a lot more should be optimistic because of the realism of who we got. I'm trying to make sure and whereas last year when we had these shows in the summer, I was a little more pessimistic because I knew what we had in the O-line, the question marks.
You were right down the money. You told people to rein in their expectations, and you hit the nail on the head. So
plus the guys we lost that went to the NFL. But this team right now, personnel-wise, ranks with anybody in the country, college teams. And we just got to fill a few holes. The other thing that's very comforting is our kicking game. Our kicking game should be stellar. You got a guy that can kick when the band's playing in Podlesny. You got a great punter. You got good kick return guys. You're going to have a competition there between Blaylock and Kyrus Jackson. I mean, to be the punt returner, come on, how much more competition could you have there? And then you got
James Cook, make it crazier.
What's that?
Put James Cook back there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got all those guys. I mean,
and Arian Smith do it,
and that's not even talking about Arian Smith on kickoffs.
Yeah. It's a plethora of talent.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned him. We had one of the fastest players in college football. We didn't even talk about him.
One of the fastest people anywhere, not just college.
Hey, Jake, do we have any more questions?
No, that's it for us this week.
I would like to end this story with this show with a question. Okay. Back in the 60s, there was a group that had the name of the group was the Beatles. There was John, Paul, George, and
Ringo.
Pete Best.
Ringo.
I'd like to end it by saying happy birthday, Roddy. Happy birthday.
Like that, Roddy?
The fearless.
I do. I do. I like it.
Roddy, you're 49 today?
49 today.
Happy birthday, Roddy.
Thank you.
I want to give a little kudos to my man, Stats McMahon. People behind the paywall saw that
greatest poem of all time.
Poem that he wrote, and very talented. But the thing about it, it's hard to get a friend like these two guys have for each other. Went to college to know each other all this time, and knowing you can count on somebody. I sent a little note to Stats today about, hey, it's important to know you got friends like that. And fortunately, I've got you guys to be friends with me, but you never want to take that for granted, particularly on your birthday. So I thought that was a very genuine, heartfelt type deal that Stats put out there.
You can't write that many stanzas if you don't know somebody from the time they were 18-year-old.
Nobody's gonna make light of it and just try to bust me up right
No,
here.
I'm serious. I'm saying that. I mean, Dave did such a good job that some of the stanzas in there are kind of inside jokes.
There's a lot of inside jokes, but I also mentioned the sponsor, so it's good for that.
You know, like that. I mean, this is CBS and Stats. He knows how to get those sponsors.
He knows, yeah, a long time.
So someone's known you 31 years. They know your good side and bad side. If they stick around, seeing you at your worst, seeing you at your best, you know they're a damn good friend. That is.
And that's what the University of Georgia brings to you. So you 17-year-old recruits, come to the University.
It was funny. We had the conversation. We were talking about a 2-year versus a 4-year college, or going to community college or a smaller college, then transferring to UGA. And my wife pointed out, she's like, aren't most of your friends the guys you were met as freshmen? I'm like, yeah. So again, that's why we love Georgia so much, is because it's where we met our friends and family. And,
and I would say that's the reason that Robertson and the other guy are coming back.
Rochester, absolutely, and Devontae Wyatt and Justin Schaefer. They're like, hey, this is a great place to be. If I can do this one more year before I go get a real job, hell yeah.
And on a team,
5 years graduation. All right, guys, I want to say I appreciate all the well wishes, everyone. Thanks to our friends at Athens Ford, Europie here, Academy Brewing Company, Aaron Overhead Doors. Again, get the 14-inch pizza, the big one,
with as many toppings as you want.
Yeah, we're about to tear this up, so we need to turn the camera off because this is about to get ugly in here. It's back to freshman year. All right, everybody, and of course, thanks to DR Construction Maintenance, Aaron Overhead Doors, and Dane Young, Jake Roos, Jim Donnan, and my best friend Dave McMahon.